How's it going, everybody, and welcome to this installment of the Stupid Questions podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Jaryd Browne, who is the husband of Emma Browne, who we had on just a number of weeks ago. She was episode number 8 on the podcast, I believe. So go check that one out if you haven't. So Jaryd is an athlete, entrepreneur, South African born and raised. He moved to Boulder for a number of years, doing the professional route for triathletes. He's a coach. He's done so many things. We talk about his solar panel installation company. We talk a little bit about farming. We talk about triathletes, even the crazy stuff that he's done within the endurance sport world of race car driving with Formula E, Formula One type of stuff. So really interesting, dynamic podcast today. I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, Jaryd Browne. Cool. Well, thanks for jumping on. I feel like I know you a little bit already, I guess, because I talked to your other half for a good bit, and she had lots of good things to say. So thanks so much for being on. But, yeah, how you doing today?
Yeah, good. No, thanks for having me. It's quite exciting to be here with you today. And, yeah, it was cool to see Emma's pod go out this week. And, yeah, it's exciting to kind of delve into a different side of things.
So the way that I love to start off is to just hear a little bit from you. If you were to introduce yourself to someone else who doesn't know you, doesn't know you're associated with triathlon, doesn't know anything about your background, how would you introduce yourself to them?
Yeah, I think I'd introduce myself to someone that doesn't know me as an energetic go-getter. Yeah, pretty much say yes to everything, which often gets me into trouble. But yeah, if it's an adventure or if I could help someone, I often just dive straight into it and yeah, figure out the rest later.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. So I know you are South African born. You're 2 years older than me, I believe. You're born in 1994. Were you grown up? Did you grow up in South Africa?
Yeah, so I've been living in South Africa pretty much my whole life. I went to the same school from 5 years old to 18 years old, and then studied in South Africa as well, and started triathlon in high school and went to kind of a private uni first, and then I went to a high performance center where we had like a small Olympic distance training squad, and yeah, trained out of there for a few years before coming to the States and chasing the dream and spending some time, spending, I think it was 5 or 6 summers in Boulder consecutively before COVID kind of stopped that.
Yeah.
And then, Emma and I came back out in 2021, did a big 4-month stint in Boulder when there was like kind of the stricter COVID rules, because we knew once we were in America, we could kind of race and do everything there. And we didn't want to be changing countries and having changed regulations and stuff like that. So, yeah, been in South Africa for a long time, spent a lot of time in the States. And, now we're in a suitcase traveling the world.
Yeah, that's really neat. So I want to back up quite a bit. So you said 5 through 18, you're at the same school. Did you go to school with any siblings? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, so I've got a sister who's 3 years younger than me. We went to the same school until I finished school. And at that time, my family relocated to the coast. So about a 45-minute to an hour flight east to the coast. And yeah, then that's where my sister finished school.
Okay, interesting. So I have kind of a stupid question for you. It kind of goes along with the name. So I grew up obviously in the U.S. and you have the winter months that are peaking in around December, January, the Christmas holiday. It fits the season because you are in the opposite hemisphere. Whenever you think of Christmas and whatnot, is it really hard to disassociate the months that you currently or grew up knowing as the Christmas months and the holiday season?
Yeah, I think so a little bit. I mean, for us, when we think about Christmas, we always think about like barbecues and playing sport out in the garden and getting sunburnt and stuff, So it's always been summer for us. I've never been in the States for a winter, but we often used to go as a family to Europe, go skiing and stuff in the winter months over Christmas,
Mm-hmm.
because we also have like a big school holiday there, because our school years and our Christmas holidays kind of overlap. So we finish school in the beginning of December, and you only go back kind of 6 weeks later, middle of Jan. So we used to have holidays in over the Christmas New Year period and go to Europe. And when I started dating Emma, and then when we got married, we would like alternate Christmases going to South Africa or going to the UK. So kind of have experience of both of those. But yeah, not too
Yeah.
many white Christmases.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's so I lived in the Philippines for a year during college, and it was so hard for me trying to get used to. I mean, it's kind of along the equator, so it's neither here nor there in terms of like what time of season it is. But it was still winter, but it was hot, and it just bothered me so bad, and I couldn't get past that. I was like, how can you guys even put out Christmas trees and stuff? It's like 95 degrees. It feels like terrible. But anyway, I just wanted to hear your perspective on that, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think also the only kind of perspective we have on a white Christmas was movies, you know. Other than
Yeah,
that, everything was like normal for us.
yeah, for sure. So, you mentioned siblings. You went to the same school, 5 through 18. Tell me what Jaryd was like as a kid. I have some assumptions, but I want to hear from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, geez. I think I was a naughty kid, man. I was up to no
Yeah,
good in the early years of high school. Um, I was a swimmer when I was like in primary school, and you know, swimming has got, I would say, probably the highest. Maybe swimming and gymnastics have got the highest dropout rate for kids, you know, because the peak
mm,
age is so young that you have to get thrown in the deep end early. And yeah, when we were
yeah.
kids, you're swimming kind of 6 days a week, and just before school, after school, like it was just insane. So when I got to high school, I was just done with swimming
Wow.
and athletics. Like I was just over it. And yeah, you get kind of involved in the wrong groups, and yeah, it's fun to cause trouble, you know. So I think I maybe had like a year or 18 months of just being a troublemaker, and then kind of got into sports and got into cycling. I was We had a cycling academy that was in Johannesburg, and I joined that cycling academy, and when I was 16, like yeah,
Sure.
U16, and Chris Froome was in the same academy as in the U23 cat. So we kind of all rode together and like did some training camps and stuff together. And I then was just like all in for cycling, but kind of
Hmm.
didn't put any effort into my schoolwork or school sports or anything like that. And then had to kind of get back onto track with that. And a lot of my teammates went overseas to race in Europe. You know, they in South Africa,
Yeah.
you only had to finish grade 9, or I think it was, yeah, when you're 16, you could essentially leave school. You didn't have to carry on. So they went overseas
Interesting.
to race in Europe, and my parents were like, "That's not happening. You need to finish school." So
Hmm.
yeah, I had to knuckle down into the books, and I started triathlon because yeah, my mom started triathlon and she did one, and they were like, "Oh, you used to swim. This is a good idea. Jump into that." So
Yeah.
yeah, then
Yeah,
then
for
I
sure.
kind of got just all into sports. Yeah.
So I'm curious, because you said in the beginning you were thrown in the deep end with both swimming and gymnastics. Is that
No,
correct?
I just think
Or you
gymnastics is
you
probably one of the
didn't?
other sports that kids just get burnt out in.
Okay, but swimming you did it a lot.
Yeah.
W- was the dream or thought there like Jared's really energetic and he's going to do good at swimming, or your parents were like, we have a future Olympian on our hands, shove him in the pool, or was it like something you wanted to do as well? Because you said you got burnt out and then you came back to it. So what was that full circle like?
Yeah, I think swimming for us at school was quite a big sport. We weren't a sport that was really like big in the team sports. We were a pretty new school, so swimming was one of the sports that you could do at school, but then you could also have like a club, so we would have school sport swim training, and then like my friends and stuff, we all had club swimming. So we used to go and do another swim session in the afternoon. And I think what was really cool is it was close to where we stayed, but it also brought like the other schools around, So say there was 5 schools in the area, we all went to the same coach for swim training, and we used to have like meets on a Friday evening and have barbecues and music and popcorn and all kinds of stuff every weekend, which was more like a social element.
Sure.
And yeah, my best friend kind of took it pretty seriously. He was one of the guys that was going to squad swimming before school, and then like getting to school late because he was training in the morning, and he took it pretty seriously. And yeah, we just kind of all just followed in the direction of swimming. And my dad swam at school, so yeah, it kind of was just one of those sports that we got into. No real Olympic dreams or getting forced by our parents.
Sure. So what kind of swim times were you putting in back then, and then compared to
Oh,
now?
I can't even remember. Like, I know that when I finished, I probably stopped when I was 13. It was really when we were small, and then yeah, when I started swimming again in 2011 because I needed to do triathlon, it took me a long time. Like, I was talking to an athlete this morning on a call who is just trying to get their swim time up, and I swam for years. Just my swim was just consistently like 28, 29 minutes for 70.3, because I just, if I trained, I swam that. And if I didn't train, I also swam that. So I was just like, oh, may as well just kind of focus on the other sports. And then I think it was only my 3rd or 4th summer in Boulder where I was training with Julie Dibbins, and kind of just had 2 good summers of big quality and big volume, and kind of broke through, and then started that, oh, actually I can swim again, and started seeing some times come down, and that gave me hope to race professionally.
Yeah, that's awesome, and we're gonna get to that. I want to touch on that in a little bit, but well, I guess, when did you first become professional? Like, when did you hit that kind of head on?
Yeah, so I mean, I first started racing triathlon as a junior in 2011, and then I went to like Olympic distance world champs as an age grouper in 2013 in Edmonton.
Okay.
And then I went to study at this high performance center, and we kind of were all on this like Olympic dream, like
Yeah.
most U23 athletes. And it was good. I mean, we trained hard. We had some good things, and we started racing some Continental Cups and stuff like that. But in South Africa, we didn't have many Continental Cups, and obviously it's so far to get from South
Yeah.
Africa. I'm sure Emma probably mentioned that in her podcast. It's like, to get to a Continental Cup is just expensive. It's hard. It's a mission.
Yeah.
So for maybe 18 months of doing that, I was a bit lost, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to do Olympic distance. My swim wasn't getting better. I was just kind
Mm.
of just off that second pack, and I was like, I need to find out what I really want to race. And that's when I came to Boulder and started kind of training with the group there, that with Flora Duffy and Cam Dye, and that was kind of just showed me that was when Flora Duffy was kind of just making her like stepping slowly into the ITU stage from the Xterra, and there was guys
Right.
that were just showing that they could race everything. You could race short course, you could race Xterra, you could race 70.3. And I came
Mm-hmm.
back to South Africa, and I was like, I want to just race everything. Any race that is I'm going to do, um, which was good for a while, but obviously that's not sustainable. And then I kind of found my feet in the 70.3 distance.
Yeah. Are you currently still racing 70.3s?
So I raced the 2019 year as a pro, and then I raced the first half of the year, or first 3 months of 2020 as a pro. And like, the goal was to keep racing, but then obviously COVID happened,
Sure.
and it's a lot of effort for or a lot of energy that our household needed when Emma and I were now both
Yeah.
racing. Emma and I had been dating for a while then, and then I kind of just said there's no point in us both trying to chase this and me sucking this energy away from the
Mm.
accumulative energy that we had. So I didn't race for a long time. I did like gravel races and mountain bike races and stage races
Sure.
and a marathon and whatever. But this year has kind of been the first year that I've enjoyed racing again, and kind of putting some target races back and putting a structure together, having a coach, kind of doing that. For a long time I was just rolling with the punches, jumping in a track session once a week, swimming with Emma as much as I could, and
Yeah.
just trying to keep fit.
So there's a lot happening right here. So you meet Emma. I want to hear first from your perspective. How did you met Emma, and then how you wooed her? Because we have it documented, her story now, so I'll be able to go back and compare those. But I want to hear about that, and then as you started dating her, and like you said, you decided to start a family, and then you made this decision, through a bunch of circumstances, it sounds like, to kind of invest the energy into her. What was that decision-making process like? Because I'm sure it wasn't super easy. At least for me, it wouldn't have been. And then did you have to let any dreams die? Did you have to just put things kind of on hold? It sounds like you're racing again, but I want to hear about how you met Emma and then how you got to that place and that mindset.
Yeah, so what year was it? 2018? Was it 2018? No, 2017. I met Emma. Um, no, it was 2018. 2018.
Yeah.
2018 January. Emma came to race Ironman South Africa 70.3 in East London. And it was a pretty early, it was always the first race of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be quite a destination race. A lot of people would use the opportunity to break away from the Northern Hemisphere winter to come and do a race in Africa. And it was a really good race. It was super hard. And Emma had just kind of crashed in the December of that
Mm-hmm.
previous year, and was rebelling against her coach and her family and everyone who said that she shouldn't race. So she came to South Africa, and I was there not racing that year. We had just come back from that December. Our family had said that we wouldn't race East London. We'll kind of go on a family skiing trip, and rather just come down to East London and support. So I had some coached athletes, and I was busy trying to grow a team. I was trying to grow my coaching team. So I was there coaching and met Emma in the hotel lobby in the breakfast on the first day that we got there. And I'd been around a lot of pro athletes. In Boulder, you're swimming with multiple world champions every day, and I wasn't scared to talk to them because I just thought they were just normal people.
Sure.
And the buddies that I was with were like, oh no, like you can't just go and talk to her. She's just like, she's a professional and all of this. So I thought I was a pretty big deal. And I like rolled up to her in the breakfast buffet and was just like, introduced myself and said like, it's not really safe to ride on the roads here. If you need a turbo trainer, like I've got a feedback trainer that's in our trailer that if you need, I can just like leave at reception for you and you can grab it and do your pre-race kind of pickups and stuff with that. And then I remember going into the hotel, like checking in, and she followed me on Instagram, and I sent a screenshot to the guys that I was with, and I was like, "See, boys, here we go." And after the race, we were at the after party and a few drinks down. That was what was super cool about this race, was because it was the first race of the year and there was like not much expectations on anybody. Everybody went mental at the after party, so it was always a good hit out, and for the Europeans as well. So yeah, it was a good race, good after party, and from there it was kind of just like we started chatting because she was racing. I was kind of in my last year as a competitive age grouper, but still racing full time. And we just kept in contact, and I would travel to Europe for some races. She came back to South Africa for the Ironman and then the 70.3 Worlds, because the Worlds was in South Africa. So there was like a roadmap of her coming back to South Africa. So I don't think I really wooed her. Like her travel was booked in, but I think the South African weather was the keeper. That was what sealed the deal, because she hated being cold in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty mild there year round, right? Like I mean, you get cold, but not like freezing.
Yeah, it gets cold, but it doesn't get freezing. Like we get we do get under like 0 degrees Celsius in the winter, but it's not for a long period of time, maybe like 2 or 3
Yeah.
days at a time. And then once we're back into where we stay, like it's also dry. So there's no
Yeah.
rain, there's no kind of chance of snow. And that's why Emma loves training here now, is because even this whole block leading into Finland Worlds and everything, she was training on in the middle of the day, and it was 20 degrees Celsius, so she
Yeah.
maybe had arm warmers on or something, and then pulled them off and got some good sun. So yeah, the weather's good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. She told quite a bit about the neat scenery around you can see for where you're biking and see the different animals and stuff like that on top of the weather. So that's really neat. So how much of your bad boy complexity do you think helped in winning her over?
Yeah, I think it was kind of weird. I was in that bad boy stage where I'd been in a relationship for a long time before, and then kind of had 2 years of being a bachelor, and
Yeah.
just living the dream and traveling triathlon around the world, and wasn't really I didn't have my idea of settling down or anything like that yet. And I also said that I'd never date an athlete,
Wow.
because
She broke them all.
I dated a triathlete before, and I was like, oh no, this is going to be terrible. Like, you have to wait for them. They want to cycle with you on the weekend. Like, they want to do all of this stuff. And now Emma has to wait for me. So it kind of just flipped the tables.
Yeah. That's usually how it goes. It's funny. When I met my wife, I came back from a year abroad and I was like, oh, I'm not going to be interested in women for a while. I'm just going to just full focus on my studies. And it was like week 2 and it was game over. So it didn't quite
Yeah.
go how I planned either. So how did you, or when did you decide or start thinking about like, okay, maybe I'm going to pull back on my dreams of the professional pursuit of maybe, becoming world champion or whatever, like whatever your dreams were at that time? When did that start to shift and how did you work through that?
Yeah, I think one of the big things for me was I had a really good sponsor, like a corporate sponsor that maybe, I don't remember exactly when they pulled the plug, just COVID kind of crippled them. And that may have been like towards the end of 2020, when there was some small races, like some PTO races and stuff, and PTO were throwing some money at races in South Africa. And I was training full time with Emma during kind of the whole of COVID or 2020, and I was in pretty good shape. Like, I was in good shape to race.
Yeah.
But I think when the sponsor kind of pulled the plug, I knew that that's what was kind of getting me overseas to races. And I was super fortunate to have the year when I was, year racing with Emma, and kind of being able to piggyback on her success. Like, Challenge Family was super, super amazing. We're like giving me entries, and Emma and I could share a hotel, so like I didn't have to pay for costs like that. So it kind of closed that gap, and that bridged that gap for me to race full time.
Sure.
But during that time as well, I think I also realized that there's a big difference between having talent and like being a talented athlete, and working hard. Like, I think I had that, but I also think that there was a big spending so much time with Emma and just seeing how she trained and how she committed everything to triathlon. I think I realized that I lacked a big mental game. Maybe not that I wasn't motivated and that I didn't want to train, but more on like, I didn't want to hurt myself that much. I would train really hard, but then like as you accumulate all this fatigue and stuff, it's hard to keep going. And like I
Yeah.
said earlier, I struggle to say no. So where Emma's really good at saying no, and she won't go and socialize with people. She won't she'll put her training and her recovery first. I was trying to train and I was trying to people please. And I think I just realized that I didn't have the mental capacity to keep burying myself and chase this dream that probably wasn't going to go much further, because how intense the 2020, 21, 22 triathlon kind of outlook was. I think it burnt a lot of up and coming pros, because the year 2021, there was a handful of races, and at every single race you went to, you had a really stacked pro field. So those up and coming pros never really got the traction that they needed, that they would have had 2 years ago, where they could have gone to cherry picks, And I think that's where the new PTO for next year is going to be really good for up and coming pros that are trying to get traction. They can really target the lower tier races, make some prize money, get some exposure, and kind of build up the ranks. But after COVID, I think that was just squashed. Every race was a world championship race. And I even look at it now in America. You look at these guys that are trying to build up their reputation racing 70.3, and you've got Sam and Lionel just duking it out at every pro Ironman race in North America, which is cool for the YouTube, but it kind of buries the building athletes,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting how the sport's changed. I obviously have only been a part of it since really 2020 is when I signed up for my first race, and obviously didn't get to race it till 21. So everything that I'm kind of learning, it's changed a ton even since I've been in it. But looking back, because I interviewed Scott Tinley a while back, and just hearing how much it's shifted, and even in the past 7 to 10 years, has been absolutely wild. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of moves forward. But that kind of moves me to my next question. So you started PEaK team, correct? This is kind of your baby?
Yeah.
So tell me about... Yeah. You're good. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, it's got a slight delay. So I started the team. Like I said, the first year I kind of left the high performance center training environment. I was kind of trying to find myself and figure out what I wanted to do.
I can still hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Maybe I should just I won't look at your camera, because your camera and the voice are not overlapping.
Sorry.
No, it's cool. Yeah. So the first year that I went to Boulder in 2015, I kind of was going there with a buddy who had been there a few times and had trained with Craig Alexander and the sorts. And he was kind of going to mentor me and just help me find myself and meet people and figure out what I wanted to do with my triathlon journey. And he kind of dropped me 3 weeks before we were supposed to go. And I had booked flights, and he was supposed to sort out accommodation. But then something came up for him and he couldn't come. So I committed, and I was just I'm going either way. So I booked flights. I jumped on a plane and ended up staying with a family that I met, the lady on the bus from Denver airport into Boulder, and kind of stayed in their basement for 4 months, And at the time I had just started coaching. I studied sports science when I was at uni. So I kind of thought that was the only direction you could go with sports science was to coach triathlon, So I started coaching a few people, mainly just my parents and some friends of theirs, So really first timers, people that I felt could benefit from a bit of science-based training, because triathlon was so new still that it was very much about experience, and the coaches were all old school triathletes that were just coaching people based off what they learned in their kind of previous five years. So I started coaching people, and I also started coaching a buddy of mine that was racing. He was kind of a junior, and he was going to race the FIA, like the Formula. So it's the governing body of Formula One, but the FIA kind of young driver academy. And I saw him in the gym, and he was training and following like a workout that was printed on a piece of paper. And I was like, what are you doing, man? Like this, what are you training for? And he was like, oh no, I'm training for this young driver academy so that I can go race cars overseas in Europe. And so I started coaching him. We did some testing, and we realized how high their heart rates are, and the kind of demands that it is that their body goes through while they're in the car, because they're holding their breath. Their core body temperature is really high because they've got so many layers of fireproof clothing on, and their cognitive reaction speed has to be so high. So any kind of aerobic and physiological conditioning was a benefit for their cognitive state, and they could just drive better, and if they could control their heart rates and their core body temperature, they obviously drove better. So I was coaching like top level endurance car drivers, and then like really beginner age group triathletes. And I was trying to chase the Olympic dream. And I realized that we all kind of had the same goals. We all had performance driven goals. If it was to finish your first 70.3, win a race, or be a professional motorsport driver. And we were all kind of doing endurance sports. So everyone was running, cycling, swimming, and I wanted to bring the knowledge aspect, and that's where PEaK came from, is performance, endurance, and knowledge. And when I was in Boulder that first year, I spent a lot of time at training peaks and the Colorado University, just kind of speaking to as many people as I could. I went there and I said to myself that I wouldn't be afraid to ask people any question, and try and come back with as much information, and then also share that knowledge, because in South Africa, all the coaches thought that what they knew was secret sauce, and that was like, they didn't want to share it with anyone else. So that was what I kind of came up with. And I met some really cool sports scientists out of CU, like Inigo San Milan, who coaches for UAE, and he's Pogac's coach now. And I met him in 2015, and we did some testing, and it was just a super cool experience. And our team is just growing rapidly now. So that's kind of where it started. A long story for a simple question.
No, that's good. I mean, the more detail is better. I mean, I'm like blown away and want to hear about all of triathletes are one thing, and obviously I know that to a degree, but training performance drivers, that's crazy. Like, do you want to kind of stay in those two kind of niches and continue to drill down into those areas, or are you going to take on any athlete? Like, what's your long-term goal with it?
Yeah, I think it was kind of more of a stepping stone for the guys, because they were in South Africa. There was like no demand for fitness in motorsport. They were all just talented drivers. They could get the car around the track quickly, and that's all they did. But then the more the youngsters started going overseas, and these guys were kind of like the pioneers, the first guys that went overseas to race professionally or try race professionally. And they came back and they realized how like the level was so different, and how they needed to put so much effort into their training. So we did it for a few years. I helped them get to, they both race, they've both won big 24-hour races. They've raced in the States a lot, and now they're in a series called DTM, and they also race Formula E. So they got to a place where they kind of then went into the big manufacturers' fitness programs, the BMWs, the Audis, the Mercedes-Benz, Bentleys, and stuff like that. But we did, at the time, we still used them to kind of motivate the youngsters in South Africa, and we did some training camps, and we helped people understand the fitness and sports and professionalism as well, like what it takes to be a professional athlete and conduct yourself and interviews and stuff like that. So we did do that, but it was such a small market in South Africa that And then, it was a small market already, and then it just got kind of halved when it was who of those people actually want to make it overseas. So
Yeah.
definitely now focusing on the endurance side of sports, like through the mainstream swim, bike, run, triathlon channels.
Yeah. That's really neat. So how many athletes are a part of the PEaK team right now?
We about have about 250 athletes at the moment. We're actually launching our global team tomorrow, like our applications tomorrow, the 13th
Nice.
of September. So, and I mean, we've already got some like a bit of a soft launch, and yeah, we've got people joining up, and we really trying to make a global community. We really saw big growth in COVID in South Africa because Emma and I were both here, and we could kind of keep our pressure on the pulse and grow the community and really impact people's lives.
Yeah.
And now we've got an opportunity to do that globally, and over the past few years, we've managed to network with really good people. And these guys are just mentors, they just want to help us reach more people, get more people moving, and make people feel really good at races and race and rad kits. That's one of the big things. We want to have the coolest kit out there, and we want people to feel proud when they put it on.
Yeah, that's really neat. I was spying on the website and saw the different products, and I saw the bibs. I was just looking. I guess it's in ZAR. Which how do you? It's what is the actual name? Rand. The Rand. Is that right?
Rand, yeah.
The Rand. Yeah. So I was doing the conversion. So it's 1,200 ZAR, I think, to join the PEaK team, which is about $64 US. Is that right? Is that
Yeah,
part of the
so
soft launch that I saw on the website?
no, so that's kind of all of our local stuff that we've had in the past in South Africa, and we've
Okay.
we actually have got a new website launching that's going to have global shipping and like geolocated currencies and stuff like that. But our yearly membership will be 50 euros a year, and
Okay.
and then people will be able to kind of buy whatever kit they want. We don't want to force kit down people's throats. We want to
Sure.
be as inclusive as possible. So we want to try and make the price to entry as low as possible with, with being able to touch as many people as possible. So yeah, 50 euros a month gets you, 50 euros a year gets you in. And we've got training camps and like global training camps in Europe, America, Asia. We're going to chase big races. So yeah, we've got some cool things in the pipeline for next year.
Yeah, that sounds really neat. And it seems like this is a growing thing. I know of a few teams that are coming up on the horizon now who are really focusing on this type of a get people on the team, get the kit if you want to, more training camps, trying to be more of a kind of a show at each race and stuff. Do you think that that's going to lead in the future, like that's going to become more of a pipeline for people to get noticed? Is that kind of the idea as well? Because I know you have an athlete development team.
Yeah, so I think there's two things. I think if you look at the current state of global tri teams or the big tri teams, they all have a massive commercial element. They either sell a product like apparel or they
Hmm.
sell nutrition. So they have something that's very tangible to give the athletes that join the team, where I think, for the long term of the sports, I think we need to focus on the people. We need to focus on not so much the commercials and not so much the products, but actually which people do you want to surround yourself with? Which people do you want to grow from? Which people do you want
Yeah.
to help grow? And yeah, I think that's where we want to position ourselves. And as you said, we've got a development team where we have in South Africa, we working with a few corporates and brands to identify talent in the running space. Obviously, as well as Emma's history in running and her love for running, she's seen such a massive opportunity here where the guys just don't have the resources or the experience or the knowledge to do anything, and we want to really kind of get involved in as much as we can. And there's a guy that I think you saw on my Instagram earlier, who ran a 28 10K
Yeah.
this weekend, that we've just started looking after. And he's the kind of guy that's got no job. He lives in a rural settlement, has a pair of secondhand Alpha Flies that's got no laces in, and is just a super talented athlete, and he could qualify for a 2028 LA Games. He literally has the pedigree to do that. But in South Africa,
Yeah.
everyone always wants to go longer. It's always about two big races that are both ultra marathons, and the sponsors only look at that. And we want to kind of look after the athletes a little bit more and say, let's not go to the long distance. Let's keep running the 10,000, the 5,000, progress to half and full marathon in good faith, and then you can qualify for Olympics. But at the moment, all of these guys are just getting bullied into long distance racing, because that's where the sponsorship money is, and these guys need to take the sponsorship money because that's what's putting food on their table every week. So it's super exciting, and it's very early stages. We tried to launch it before COVID, but then COVID was tricky, obviously, with everything. And we just, over the last few months, we've found the right people. I think that's massive for us. In the last 6 to 8 months, we've really connected with really good people, and these people believe in our dream, they want to support us, and we can support them. But it takes a village. It's impossible for one of us to do it on our own, and we've all realized that, and we all realize if we work together, we can just spread the load a little bit, and we can reach more people.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And thanks for sharing that. So would you consider yourself an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I've started a few businesses. I've closed a few businesses. I've tried to start the same business 3 times, and maybe one day I'll let that dream go. But yeah, definitely, always on the go, always looking for new opportunities. I just started a new business a few months ago. That's just something totally different, and it's exciting.
What is it? I'd love to hear about it.
We install solar panels, so solar solutions, it's just something different. I just like the simplicity of it. A buddy of mine a few years ago started farming, and I was just so intrigued by how simple, like it's like the commercials and the economics of farming was. And when this opportunity came, I was like, sweet, we got to get involved because it's cool. It's different.
Solar farming.
Yeah, that would
solar
be
farming.
He was actually just doing vegetable farming.
Simple
vegetable farming for the community. He was driving around on a little 125cc motorbike delivering vegetables to underprivileged people, and they were paying like minimum prices for these vegetables, but they were getting it fresh every day, and he was doing a good job.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. I bet you if there was, and there is, I guess someone could do it, but an in-depth study about the benefits of farming to recovery and health, just physical and mental regeneration, it's got to be huge. I'm a huge believer in that stuff. I grew up gardening and doing greenhouse work, and it's just something about getting your hands in the dirt that makes a difference. I mean, it's what we're made of, basically. But yeah, that's so cool. You have to send me the links and stuff. I mean, a lot of our listeners are probably in the way you asked. We're starting to grow more and more. But if we throw your business in there, maybe somebody needs some solar panels that need installing.
Yeah, definitely.
That's cool, man. Man, so much to say. I got a few more questions for you. I don't want to keep you too terribly long. But nutrition issues, because you've done a lot, obviously work with a bunch of different types of athletes, obviously professional yourself, and then you have Emma, and I'm sure you hear of all people's stories. How do you, because everyone's like, oh yeah, I really think I got my nutrition dialed in. If you were to give advice to somebody on how to like really start doing that practically, what do you think is the best way to do that?
Yeah, I think nutrition's changed. I think that's something that people need to really understand, is that the technology in the actual nutrition has changed over time. And if you've got kind of pre-alluded ideas of previous uses of, like, let's use gels for an example, and I can refer back to Mark Cavendish and Geraint Thomas discussing it at this year's Tour de France, where they said that the gels that they used to take were totally different to what they are now. You know, they used to be like itching for the toilet on the way home from a race after having one gel, and now they're having freaking like 8 gels in a race, you know, and their stomach's fine. So I definitely think that the technology in the nutrition has changed. But when it comes to dialing in your nutrition, I think there's two things. Obviously, there's race nutrition and there's everyday nutrition. And I think most people have got now this idea that you have to hit a certain amount of carbs per hour based on your body weight and based on your intensity and all these things, which
Sure.
all are correct. But at the same time, I think a lot of people think that carbs are carbs, and that if I get 60 grams of carbs an hour in training eating Haribos, and if I go to 60 grams of carbs an hour in a race drinking carb mix and using gels, that it's going to work, you know, which is, it's not. You have to teach your gut how to absorb that different type of carbohydrates and calorie. But in saying that, I also don't think that you have to use race nutrition all the time. You know, you have to train in race nutrition, but you can also train on kind of cheaper race nutrition and then kind of hone in your race nutrition closer to the race, because it does get expensive, you know. But
really expensive.
I think going back to how do you nail it, I think you have to understand what is your goals for your race. And I break it down with my athletes pretty simply. And I'm starting to progress onto a spreadsheet, or I always progress to a spreadsheet, but now I'm starting on the spreadsheet. Before, I used to just start on a notepad and just literally write down, what is your body weight? How long are you going to be racing for? Let's break it down into swim, bike, and run. So for my Ironman athletes, let's say the guy was doing a 12-hour Ironman. And I'll use my dad as an example. He did his first Ironman at 53. He was an executive CEO at a business and was working full-time, and did his first Ironman. So when we broke down his nutrition for the race, we said, you want to do a 12-hour Ironman, you're going to swim for an hour 15, you're going to bike for 6 hours, and you're going to run for 4 hours. Let's break down each of those segments of the triathlon and work out your calories and your carbohydrates for each of those different segments. So if we went, obviously you can't really have anything on the swim. You can carry a gel with you if for an Ironman, put it in my sleeve or in my collar of my shirt, but kind of work each segment in separately. So I would always start with 90 minutes before the race. So what's your pre-race breakfast? How do we start getting in calories early? And I always used to go to, and I still do, go to a bottle of high carb drink mix that I'd sip for 90 minutes just to start getting those carbohydrate stores nice and high, and then kind of start working into the actual race nutrition. What am I going to have 15 minutes before my swim, before the swim starts? Am I going to have a gel? Am I swimming fast enough to warrant having a gel during the race, or can I wait until I get into transition? Then breaking down onto my bike specific nutrition. What can I carry on the bike? How many bottle cages do I have on my bike? How many bottles of carb drink do I have? And I always used to tell my guys to put in 1,000 milligrams of sodium, normally with the precision hydration sachet, into the first bottle, just to get the kind of electrolytes in early. And then break it down per hour. You know, if we're having to race for 6 hours, what is our strategy going to be? We've got 2 bottle cages on the bike of 80 grams of carb drink each. We've got let's say a gel every second hour and a bar every 45 minutes. And I note it down. So I go like 20 minutes or one bottle every 90 minutes, and then a gel every 45 minutes, a bar every 60 minutes, and then allocate a carbohydrate value to all of those, and then add it up. Okay, cool. We've got 550 grams of carbohydrates, and we're doing 6 hours. So that's going to be 80 grams of carbs per hour. Is that our target? Yes, no, and kind of work from that. And then, yeah, it's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, if you're doing a 12-hour Ironman and you're trying to get to 100 grams of carbs an hour, that's 1.2 kilos of carbohydrates. You know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And most of it's coming out of a fructose, which is a sugar. So your body needs to learn how to adapt to that and how to absorb that. I can hear you, yeah.
It started getting pretty fuzzy again, I'm not sure. But the last thing I heard you say is like, yeah, after 12 hours, that's 1.2 kilos of carbs, which is insane. And, you know, the reason I asked that is because I raced Ironman Wisconsin on Sunday, and I thought I had it figured out, and I made some stupid mistakes, and was shooting for 9 hours, 30 minutes, top 10 overall, ended up 27th, and 10 hours, 22 minutes, which was like 40 minutes slower than my last one that I did. But I keep having this issue where my gut by the end of the bike is just like completely terrible, and then I just can't even, I'm like wanting to vomit anything that I put down for the run, and my gut just locks up, and it's just like, you know, it goes downhill from there. I'm not able to get in salt, not getting fluids, and then, you know, had to get 2 IV bags afterwards just to feel like a human being again. So that's why I asked that question. I was just curious to hear what your perspective was. So that was, for if no one else, definitely beneficial for me, selfishly.
Did you carry any water with you?
I did. I started with.
That's your mistake.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
your first mistake.
Carrying water on the run?
No, carrying water on the bike.
Oh,
actually,
so,
any water.
No, I had. Really?
Yeah, water's a useless waste of weight and space that's got no real like nutritional value, you know. Like if you're drinking water, you're gonna you're washing away any electrolytes that you have in your system. And if you're gonna drink, you may as well get something out of it, you know. If it's carbohydrates or electrolytes, it's gonna make a huge difference, you know.
Interesting. Well, I had 3 bottles of about 180 calories, and, you know, they've got like, 60 grams of carbs in them, and then I take something every hour or whatever. But I did start grabbing water and putting it in my suit, and yeah, putting down water, and then I think that's probably where I messed up. So anyway, I got to redo my whole nutrition plan. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, I think the only thing water's good for is cooling down.
Okay, good deal.
Keeping the core body temperature down.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, thanks so much for telling me that. I do have one more final question. For the stuff that you're doing with PEaK Team and, you know, you personally, and it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but how do you get sponsors? Like, what do you use as, like, your pitch? Like, hey, KDEX, or hey, whatever, you know, one of your sponsors that you guys use. How do you draw them in to get them to bite on something? Or does it not happen that way? Do they reach out to you directly?
Yeah, I think it's very different, you know. For a long time, I managed Emma and I did all of her contracts. And Emma's, it depends what product you're trying to sell, you know. When I was trying to get Emma sponsors, it was pretty easy to get sponsors because she races a lot. She's got good results. She's got good social media, and yeah. We always sold this kind of story that she likes to race a lot, so you're going to get a lot of exposure, you know. And with that, you build really good relationships with your sponsors. So I think that was important for us, and it still is today. Like, we've always wanted to build long-lasting relationships with our sponsors. But at the same time, because I was only doing Emma's management, I didn't have an understanding of what the market value was or what other people were offering or were getting. So I was pretty blind to that. And when it came to like renewal stage, then it was a very, very tricky, because now you've made this really good relationship with a partner, but now you need to renew or increase your budget. And it was tricky to kind of, how much do we go up without like losing it completely? Do we stay at the same, but we like 20% under market value? So that was kind of tricky. But we kind of figured it out, and now we were Centauro, which is really nice. And I get to keep the partners happy, and Adam gets to keep the commercial side of things happy. So it's a good balance.
Yeah.
With the PEaK team, it's a little bit different, There's different type of exposure. We also there's different types of sponsorship. Sponsorship is a whole bag of worms that's very tricky at the moment, because you've got influencers, you've got ambassadors, you've got professional athletes that all kind of fit into the sponsorship bubble, but they can kind of like piss on each other's batteries, because you're now competing as a professional athlete, competing for a sponsorship from someone who's willing to take a 15% promo code, and give the brand not much, but take a lot, So it's a tricky thing. As we grow, we just try and keep it authentic with our sponsors. We're never going to force a product down our athletes' throats, and we're never going to say that this product's better than another product, because different products work for different people. And it's nice to kind of find brands that have affiliate programs that we can help them with sales, because that's the number one thing. They're looking as a corporate, they're looking for sales, and our opportunity is that we've got people that are directly related to whatever product you have, that can purchase those products. So they're not professional athletes trying to get stuff for free. They just want a discount to make them feel good. And that's kind of how we position ourselves.
Yeah, it sounds like a full-time job, all the different stuff you're doing. For sure.
Yeah, it's tricky, but we balance it. And it's, I'd rather have a full-time job like that than sitting in an office.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that leads me to my very last question then. If you had to start it all over, you didn't have any of the same contacts, you have yourself, we'll give you Emma because I guess you married her, what would you do and how would you do it?
Oh, yeah. I think it's like we've done everything pretty organically. We've grown slowly, we've grown small, and we've got good traction. So it's taken some time, and maybe the biggest thing that I think I would have changed from the start is believing that we actually could do this, because at the start it was just a random idea, and then someone would say, oh, you need a logo, and then I'd make a logo, and then, oh, you need a bank account, so then you make a bank account. But I never really had like a business plan or a vision of what this was going to be. And I think if I had to start again, I think that's where it would be, because everything's kind of just evolved of where do we go next? Where do we go next? Yeah. And in saying that, I think, maybe having a business plan would have been a better thing to do. But at the same time, that business plan probably would have got thrown in the bin after month one, and we would have just done what we're doing now anyway, because we have to evolve and we have to figure out what do the people want, not what is our idea in 2015 when we want to drive this.
Yeah, constant pivot. Cool, man. Well, that's so awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and for telling me a bit about your story, who you are, where you've come from, everything that you guys are doing. I'm really excited to see how it continues to progress, especially with the PEaK team. I'll have to spy on you guys a little bit more and see about the kits and whatnot. But thank you so much. It's been super fun.
Let's get you involved. Let's see you out to some races next year, and we definitely will have a training camp stateside soon. We're just waiting for some dates, and then we can announce that stuff.
Yeah, cool. Is it going to be in the Midwest area probably, or?
I'm not even sure. I've got an amazing group of mentors that are kind of driving everything in the States. And yeah, I've kind of given them free realm to decide what they need to do and let me know how I can help them and how we can drive people there. But they know their area and they know what's best for their clientele. So we kind of
Cool.
putting the ball in their court and giving them the support that they need.
Spoken like a true leader. Awesome. Cool, man. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. It's been good to chat.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Stupid Questions podcast. Thanks again to Jaryd Browne for taking the time. It was probably like 8 p.m. or later over there in South Africa. Just so awesome of him to jump on and tell us his story. Wish him and the PEaK team and Emma all the best. Emma still has a few more races this season, and I think Jaryd even does as well. So just super awesome to have them on. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate the podcast, and anything you do to share it. Anything you can do to share it would be much appreciated. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.